Hi everyone, in this tutorial we are going to learn the basics of rigid body dynamics inside Houdini. If you come from Cinema 4D, it will be really easy to understand the process. You can do powerful and complex destruction systems with rigid body dynamics, and I hope this video will help you to get started with only a few clicks in the shelf tool. So let's begin! Okay, let's start our project by placing a sphere. And let's dive in. Let's convert this sphere to a polygon and increase the frequency to 20. Okay, we have a simple sphere, and let's break that sphere. We can break that with a Voronoi fracture. As you see, Voronoi fracture. For the first input, we need to wire the object we want to break. And the second input is asking for the points to know where to break. We can do that by placing a scatter. Right, we are scattering some points along the surface. Let's decrease this to 100. Okay, I'm going to increase the view. Let's go to point size 10 so you can see the points. Okay, so now we are scattering the points, 100 points along the surface of the sphere, and let's wire these points to the second input of Voronoi. If you wire the Voronoi, you don't see much, but to see the breaking and the fracture, let's place an exploded view node. This node will allow us to see the breaking points. Okay, see, with the uniform scale you can increase or decrease to see the fracturing. Right now we see that our fracturing points are making these little spikes. It can be cool for different results. But how can we break inside the sphere? Because now we are only scattering points along the surface, so the Voronoi fracture is only breaking on the surface of the sphere. That's why we have only fracturing on the surface, and we have those spikes to the center. In order to do that, there are some different approaches. We can convert this to a ISO offset, to a volume, right? Increase the uniform division to 50, then scatter. As you may know, this way you can scatter points inside the sphere, right? It's not only on the surface. Let's decrease this to 100 again, and you see we have some points inside the sphere. So now if we wire these scatter points to the second input of Voronoi, we'll see that now we have some breaking and fracturing inside the sphere. We don't have anymore those spikes, right? There is other way to do that. Again, with the scatter points only on the surface, we can link the Voronoi fracture points. With this node, we can link the geometry first on the wire on the first input, and then on the second input we can link the impact points. So now we'll see this weird kind of volume shape, and if we press here visualize points, you can see we have different points inside the sphere, right? Now we are scattering points on the surface, interior and exterior. If you see, if I increase this point density on the surface, we'll have more points on the surface of our sphere. On the interior, it happened the same. And this way, without converting the sphere to a volume and then scatter, we can simply use these Voronoi fracture points with a simple scatter on the surface. And now we are breaking. Let me turn this on. Now we are breaking inside the sphere. And this way we can control, for example, we want less less points on the surface. Let me decrease this to maybe 0.1 and have a lot of points inside the sphere. This is one way to control the fracturing. See? Pretty cool. One other thing you can do is using the paint tool to decide where you have more fracturing points. But we are going to check that in a bit, because in our simulation I want to have our sphere intact, right? And we have a capsule or a bullet dropping from the sky and breaking the sphere. But for now, let's go with this one. I'm just going to explain how the system works, and we'll go back to the paint tool in a bit. So we have this Voronoi fracture. Let's place a null. I just like to place nulls to have like breakpoints to know the position. So let's call it sphere fracture. So we know this null is the fracturing point. Okay. So right now, let's just do one thing. Let's push this up a bit. Okay, I don't like to control the things here. I want to place a transform. Let's delete this is offset because I'm not using it. Okay, now let's push this up. Okay, we have our sphere. And now how do we convert this and make this dynamic? On Cinema 4D you just add a tag, right? Here in Houdini is a little bit more complex, but you can have a shelf tool to do that system for you. So select the sphere. Let's go to this tab where it says rigid bodies. Here, rigid bodies. When we have a lot of fracture on the main object, we can go to RBD objects, and this is creating a auto-dop network. And if you go inside the sphere, now you see you have a rest node, assemble node, and a doping port. Okay, and here on the auto-dop network we have a sphere with a merge, rigid body solver, another merge, gravity, and output. Let's place a floor just to see what is going on. Let's place a ground plane. Why is my Houdini not working? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now we have a ground plane, that is a floor, and you'll see on our DOP network, if you press L, now we have a ground plane, wire to a static solver, and wire to a merge with our RBD objects. Right. So now, if I press play, you'll see our sphere is breaking. Pretty cool, pretty simple for now. One thing you can do is add constraints to our fracturing points, to our sphere, and make them glue to each other. So some parts will need more force to break. In order to do that, let me go back, delete this and these three last nodes, and go back to our node. Okay. With our sphere, go back to rigid body shelf, and instead of clicking on RBD objects, we are going to click on RBD glued objects. You'll see it's almost the same. Let's place a ground plane. Okay, so we are back to where we were. Our sphere, ground plane, auto-dop network. Okay, so let's go back to the sphere. And now you see that we have the same 3 nodes with rest, assemble, and dop import. And we have 3 more nodes, or 4 if you count with the null, that will control the factoring and the constraints. You see, those are the constraints that will allow us to glue the factoring. Let's go back to the dop network, and now you see we have the same system, right? With the ground plane, our RBD object, and now we have a glue constraint. With this glue constraint, you see we have the strength of 10,000. If I press play, some of the particles will stay together. See? Let me just increase this factoring point. Let's see. So we have here. Let's increase the surface to 0.5. Okay. We have more factoring points. Okay. So now we have more factoring points, so we have more constraints. If I go back here, and you'll see we have even more constraints. So the glue strength will be easier to understand. As you see now, only some points are breaking because on those pieces the force of the impact is stronger. If I decrease this to 100, for example, you'll see they will break more easily. If I go to 1000, now just play with these values to understand this glue effect, this glue constraint. These other points are for the propagation of the factoring. I like to keep these like 0.5 and 0.4. Let me maybe increase this to 3000. Let's see. And you'll see the factoring will take more time to break. The strength is way too high. You see, it's breaking, right? But it's not breaking all the way. So it's taking some time to break the other stuff. See? Okay. So this is the basic stuff. Of course, we are working with a sphere. It's a simple object, but you can link any object you want. So we have the very basic, but we want a different approach. We want to have our sphere in the ground. So in this transform, let's place the sphere on the ground. So let's copy the uniform scale and place here on translate on Y, paste relative reference. I can't say that word. So now we have our sphere on the ground. If we increase the scale of our sphere, it will always stay on the ground. Okay, let's go back to 2. And let's create our bullet. Let's place a geo node, call it bullet, and let's place a tube, for example. Let me hide the other objects just so we can see. Maybe, but I need to see the sphere. Sorry about that. I need to see the scale. Okay, it will be a bit higher. Sorry, my cell phone is ringing. Let me turn off. Okay, so now we have our tube. maybe the height is cool. Let's bevel this just to smooth the points. Let me convert this to polygon. Okay. Okay. And let's transform. Let's put the bullet above, like more than 410. Okay. And let's place a null. Let's call it a bullet. Okay, so we have our bullet prepared, and let's convert this to a dynamic object too. Let's go to bullet and click on RBD objects. Now if we dive into the Autodoc network, we'll see that now we have a bullet here, wired to the merge with the sphere and then wired to the rigid body solver. Okay. Right now if I press play, our sphere is starting to break and our bullet is doing almost nothing. It's colliding with the sphere as we want, but it's not the bullet that is breaking the sphere, right? So we are going to do a little tricks for that animation, as I did on the example, because I want to see you don't have to always like follow the physics. Okay, you can do a little tricks. For example, let's turn off the gravity. Okay, now of course the bullet is not falling, so let's go to the bullet here on the RBD packed object and let's add a velocity -20 on the Y. So we are adding -20 on the Y velocity to the bullet, so it will fall. Let's see. But it has lower strength to break the sphere, so let's see. Let me see if we decrease the strength to 100, if we can break the ball. Okay, starting to doing something. Let's go back to the bullet. Let's play with the physical. Let's increase the density to 10,000 maybe. And the sphere, let's reduce the density to 100. Now I'm just playing with the values to get what I want. See? But now, as you see, as we don't have gravity, right? We turn off the gravity. So some of the particles or the fracturing are going above and never fall down because we don't have gravity. See? This little part is going up forever because we are working on space now. We don't have gravity. One thing I did is turning on the gravity after the impact. For example, when it breaks, maybe here on 1 second on 30 frames, I'm starting to turn on the gravity. So let's add a keyframe on gravity here, alt click, remember. Then on frame 60, let's place -10 close to the gravity force. Okay, if we press play, we will have the same result. The gravity will stay 0 forever because even we have the keyframes, okay, but if you see on default operation we have set initial. So if on the first frame we have 0 on gravity, it will stay 0 forever. So in order to fix that, let's change the set initial to set always. This way it will shake the force of the gravity each frame. So you see, we don't have gravity, and now we are adding some gravity. See, now our pieces are falling. Pretty cool. And we are missing one little thing. Remember when I said we can paint the fracturing with a paint node, right? Because now, as you see, we have the fracturing points uniform along the surface, right? And I want to have more fracturing points above. We have more fracturing when the bullet hits, and less fracturing points on the bottom. So how do we do that? Let's go back to our sphere, and let's go back to our null, just to see what we are going to do. So, as I said, now we have fracturing points alongside the surface, right? And we are going to use the paint tool to control our scattering points. Okay, so go to the transform and let's wire a paint node. As you know, with this paint tool we can paint our sphere, right, our object. Let's go to the background and apply to all to paint everything on black. Let's change the view to top viewport. Okay, and let's paint with our foreground. Let's paint in the middle. To increase our brush size, just press Shift and click and drag. Okay, let's now make it not so uniform. Okay, let's go back to our perspective view. I can see I need to increase on this size a little bit. Okay, and let's go here, operation for all, let's smooth and apply to all, and you'll see our paint will be smoother. Okay, so now what? Let's place a scatter node, wire to the paint node, and you see nothing happens, and we have only colors on our scatter points now. But if we check this density attribute, and instead of using density, let's use the color. Now you see that we are scattering our points only on the white points, right? It's scattering depending the color on the sphere. If it is black, it's not scattering any points. Okay, let's decrease this to 50, maybe 100. Okay. Now if we wire these scatter points to the Voronoi, you'll see what we are going to make. See? Now we have more scatter points on the top and less above. Right? But if we don't use the Voronoi fracture points, we are getting those spikes to the middle, remember? So let's try and wire these here. Let's see what we are going to get. Okay. I quite don't like this one. Let me see one thing. Now I'm just playing with the Voronoi fracture points to see what we can do. But this way I'm not getting a lot of points. Okay, I'm getting these spikes over here. I quite don't like that. Let's see one way to control this. Go back to our, because we have those blue dots. Those are the exterior, remember? If I decrease this to 0.2, you see we have lower or less blue points, so our exploded view will be less. It's getting there, but I want more scattering points on the top. So let's increase this to 50. We are getting there, so we have more fracturing on the top and less on the bottom. Maybe I'm going to increase just a little bit the surface to 1. Let's see. Cool. And on the interior, let's increase to 0.5. Okay, we are getting there. So now let's turn on the doping part. Let's go up and let's see our animation. Okay. Almost there, but we have a problem with the glue strength. I think that's the problem, because now we have a lot of fracturing, so it's not breaking that easily. Let's see. Maybe increase the L5. Let me check if we need to increase or decrease. Number of seconds for the glue impulse to decay by 1/2. Okay, so if we have low and the propagation 1, not 1. I don't like to play with full force. And on the bullet, let me increase maybe the initial velocity, density. Let's decrease the density of our sphere. Okay, let's see if we can break this easily. Cool. Okay, we are getting somewhere. Maybe we have too much fracturing, but maybe that's cool. Let me just decrease, not for my taste, but if you like. Now, as you see, it's depending on the taste for each one. So on the fracturing points, let's put this like this. So here, let's increase this to 30. Yeah, let's go back to 20. On the surface, let's decrease this 0.75. I was talking in Portuguese. And 0.3. And exterior 0.4. Okay, let's check the fracturing. Okay, not bad. And let's check our simulation. Let's go back, reset the simulation, and let's see what we have. Maybe now we can increase the strength of our glue. Now, as you see, it's always going back and forth, checking parameters and making it in your taste. Still not getting much of the glue, they are breaking a lot. So let's go back here and make it like 500 maybe. He's way too strong. Cool. This is more like it. Pretty cool. Now, what we can do to make it more interesting. There are a bunch of ways to do this. On my kickball experience, I did the debris by myself. I placed a particle node and a pyro node from the scratch. But you can see you can do other thing and it's more easy. So let's select the sphere, and if we go to the shelf tool and rigid bodies, you see you have a debris icon. If you press on debris, let's go up. Now you see that we have a debris source, a debris scene, and our output debris. So now, if I press play, you will see that we are going to emit a lot of particles, we call them debris or dust, on our fracturing edges. So let's see. See, our fracturing is emitting particles now. But we have a few problems. First, I have the point size way too big. Let's go back to 3. So we have a little dust only. And we see our particles are not colliding with the floor. Okay, because if we go into the dot network on our debris, you see that we don't have any collider here. So let's go to our auto dot network. Let's copy this, the ground plane, the merge, static solver, and the other merge. Control C or Command C. Go to our debris scene and place our node. Okay, and let's wire the pop solver to our merge and turn on the merge. Be careful. We have to be sure that on our final merge we have the static solver above the pop solver. I think we have problems when they have the wrong order. Okay, because they have to check the collision, the static solver, and then solve, and then go to the pop solver. Okay, so now if I press play, you see our particles are now colliding with our ground plane. And we have a little debris with our fracturing points. Okay, so now what you can do with this debris? One thing you can see is that we don't have a gravity node anymore, because we have this pop force that is doing the gravity. So for example, if you want to turn off the gravity, just play with this force. Okay, this last pop force is the gravity, and then this is a normal pop network. Okay, with the pop solver. You have the pop source. You can control the emission as many as you want. Control when you want to emit. We have the pop stream, the pop replicate. You can control how many particles we are going to sub-emit with the first particles, right? If we increase this to 300, we have more particles as a debris, see? And for example, other thing I don't like, let me just cache this a little bit. I'm going to hide the other objects. You'll see that our particles are bouncing way too much on the floor, see? I don't quite like that. So one thing you can do is go to the pop objects. On physical you can control the bounce, so let's dial this down to 0.2. You'll see that our debris now are not bouncing that much. Pretty cool, right? You can play. This is giving me an idea for another project. We can make fracturing and then only use debris for nice sand simulation. Pretty cool. Let's go back to our tutorial. Sorry about that. So now we have our fracturing, our debris, and we are missing some smoke, right? So in order to do that, let's add some pyro effects. Okay, let's select the debris source. Be careful, you need to select the debris source and not the debris, because we want only to use the fracturing edge to emit the smoke, not the debris, because we are going to get or to have a lot of debris. So let's use the debris source. And now you can use flames, explosion. I like to work only with the smoke because I don't want the pyro simulation to get a lot of attention from the views. Okay, so I like only to work with the smoke. So let's select debris source and click below is smoke. And as you see, now we have our debris source that is using our debris sim and our debris output, and the same node is using our pyrosim, and we have the output. Okay, I like to organize these things like this so we know which node is working on what. Okay, if we go inside our debris source, the first part is for our debris simulation with our popnet, and then we have the pyro simulation. Okay, we are creating the density and noise and everything else for the pyrosim to work. If we go back to our pyrosim, now you see we have a source, a resize container, our pyro solver, a merge, and a gravity. As you may know, we need to do one thing as we did on debris. Remember, we had this ground plane, merge, and static solver. We have already that merge inside our pyrosim, so let's place here and wire this in on the merge, and remember, move the static solver to the first input. Okay, now if I press play, you'll see we'll have a little smoke. Let's wait a bit. See? So we need to control that size container. I'm still studying how this resize container works. I'm not quite happy or understanding full this node. So one thing I like to do is first on max pounds I want to turn off the clamp to maximum. Let's see one thing on our pyro. I'm just going to increase this. I don't think this is doing anything, but okay, but this way I can see the size I need. Okay, so if I go one frame above, I can see the resize fluid dynamic, the gas resize fluid dynamic node. See that little box? So we can increase this here, I think. Let's sorry, this is 5 to 5, 5, 10, and 5. See, we increased that little box. I still need a little more, so 10. The 2 is fine on the lower, 10, 10, 20, 10. Okay, I think that's better. So now we have the sphere inside the gas resize container. Okay, one thing I like to do on our pyrosim is that go to pyro solver. Here on this shape, I like to change the dissipation. Now it's only 7% dissipation. I like to increase to 25, add a little more disturbance, a little more turbulence, and I'm going to cache this a little bit and be back in a bit. Okay, I have prepared a flip book just to show you our simple animation with this simple system. So here we have our braking sphere, our debris system, and a small pyro simulation for the dust. Pretty cool, right? One thing I want to show you before we finish this video is that you can paint our sphere gives different materials to the inside and outside. Let me just play this a little bit. Okay, so for example, like on my study, I had a golden material for the inside of the sphere and the other one for the outside surface. So in one way to do that is place a material node, and here you have a group and a material. You can select, for example, the inside here on group and link a material you have, and then this node is giving a material you design for the inside surface, and for the outside just place another material, link this out, and pick the outside group, and then link the other material you want. This way you can have different materials and colors to your sphere, one for inside and the other for outside. Okay. Okay, one other thing I want to show you. Let me place a box. I'm going to show you how we can scatter and break other objects with different patterns. It's very simple to do now. Let's make it like 10 by 10 by 0.1. So we have like a window, really thin window, and let's place a RBD material factor. This node is a little bit more complex and heavy to process, but as you see, it gives you a different pattern depending on the material you want. You may have seen some shattering and dynamics with wood, glass, and this is one way to do that. Instead of creating these different patterns, we place an exploder if we can see. Let me see. Okay. See? And on this material, on this node, we can change the material type. For example, we have concrete, glass, and wood. We have wood, it will place a patterns like wood, so this object will break as it was wood. As you see, it takes a lot of time to process the pattern, but it's really good node to work. I did this glass study using this RBD material factor. Now we have a different pattern, as you see, a more complex one. As you see, this looks like wood when it's going to break. Pretty cool. And for the last one, I want to show you the glass example, because I think this is really amazing one. Let's wait a bit for this to process. And voila. Pretty cool. You can add points, so you can control this impact point. For example, now we have one scatter point. If you increase this to 3, we have 3 points here. See? Let's go back to 1. And you can play a lot with this stuff. I'm just showing you that there is this node that will save your life when you want to break glass or anything or wood like this. And you see here on the last input for this RBD material is the impact points. As I said, you can link, for example, let's place an add. Let's add 1 point, sorry, on 0, 0, 0. Here we have this point, right? And if we link this to the final, the fourth input of RBD material, and go here, let me try to remember, link the input points, turn off the scatter. Okay, now we are controlling where we want to break the glass. So if I change this point, you see our scatter points or our glass scatter will depend on the add. Is something wrong? What is going on? Okay, sorry about that. So now we have full control of these points, and if we add more points, for example, let's add another one. See, now we have 2 points. Imagine the possibility we can do with this simple node. Okay. Everything else you want to do, just like we learned on the sphere. Pick up the object and go to rigid body shelf tool and RBD glued objects and just play with dynamics. Now you know how to create a simple dynamic system, and don't be afraid to explore these amazing tools inside Houdini and achieve complex and awesome destruction results. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our Patreon page. With your support, we'll be able to keep doing these tutorials for the community. Big thanks to our patrons for the amazing feedback and support. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial and see you on the next one.